So let's take a look at this MIDI Designer Pro Ableton Live Control Surface layout. You'll notice with the layout there's also a configuration file that you download that goes on your computer. The help page on the layout shows where that gets installed. This helps the layout recognize the MIDI Designer Pro Control Surface. So we're going to be using a hardwire, so let's get the hardwire MIDI connection between set up here. Okay. And so I have a sample layout loaded here. Let's get this set up. Okay, so we go over here. The first thing we need to do is go to our Live Preferences, and you will find under the MIDI page, Control Surfaces, we will choose MDP2. Okay, now as soon as that gets loaded up, you will notice that the layout over here has synchronized to the layout. Now occasionally one of these sliders may fail to initialize. As far as I can tell, that's the data not coming from Ableton as opposed to anything on our end. So first of all, we do have the 2 pages of help that helps you get through some information down here. You also have a control channel here that selects the control channel this works on. If you need to use a different channel for your layout, you can select that there. You also need to update the configuration file for it. So as you look across the top, we have a set of controls across the top that mirror pretty much the controls across the top. In some of the cases, you'll see they're split because the way Ableton works, the status, we can't click here, we have to click here, and now you see the metronome is active on both surfaces. So it pretty much works the rest of the same way as expected across here. You've got your arrangement record here, fast forward rewind, arrangement overdub, session record here, punch in, punch out. So the real meat of what's going on is over here. So let's we have 8 tracks here that we can select through, and we select the track here like this. You can control obviously your track volume, sends, solo, and while you can mute while soloed, and that gets respected. Bring it back. A master volume, cue, and crossfader. And if we go over here, you'll see the same thing works. Let's mute 2 tracks here. Let's solo this track, unmute those tracks. We can arm this track for record. And once again, as we select, you will see it keeps up to date over there with us. If we do have more than 8 tracks across, we will have a extra arrow here showing we can scroll forward or scroll back to other tracks there. So let's go back here, get the solo turned off, and get us set up to keep going. So that's it for this area. I forgot to mention this area. We do have the Ableton link controls here. These are not part of the mapping process, but this is something added by Dan in a prior version. And if we activate our link here, we will see we have an active link, and this will allow us to synchronize tempo beat with Ableton and with other devices on the network. Final thing to talk about on this page is the device control. This allows us to control a device down in this chain down here as we select it. Let's go to one that's a little more interesting here. So this one over here, string synth guzzing, it's fairly obvious how these are mapped. If I grab that first one, I see exactly what's going on. But I can also go over here to this auto filter, and that's sort of confusing. You know, which it doesn't exactly clear which of these knobs goes to any other. There is a hidden way back in the help view. You got to dig through MIDI controllers, control surfaces, next page, control surface reference, and then detailed list. And now we get to these pages here. And I can see if I go to auto filter down here, it shows me that bank 1, number 1 will be filter. And then I actually have 3 banks controls. And if I come over here, you see I've got the little arrow that shows me I've got another bank to go. And as I cycle through the banks, now I'm in bank 3, I can go back and adjust the controls. To tell the truth, I mostly just try to remember what it is, or if I don't know, I'll grab a hold of one of these things and see what does. You can activate the device here. Or I'm sorry, once again, activate here. Turn it back on. This is a lock. What this does is that locks that to that control surface. So even though I've selected a different control surface on the computer, I still control that surface. And I can unlock it on the computer as well. Did I get that? Yeah, I got it. Okay, so I think we've covered everything on this page. So the next page, let's take a look. We've got some drums loaded up here. These are, once again, auto-mapped by the layout. Let's get record going on so we can capture what's happening. So, and then we need to select a drum track. I can select it here as well as anywhere else. And now I can play drums, and I can adjust the velocity here if I need to. It's a little hard playing drums with a mouse, but you sort of get the idea here. They're not velocity sensitive. If I look over here on the computer, I can control which slice of the map drums I'm going into. So I've gone up to there, and now I'm getting these slice sounds instead. I'm not sure you can hear those. Let's go back to our basic drum pad. Okay, so that is a quick look at all the things that are automatically mapped in the layout with the configuration file. But it wouldn't be Ableton without a launch pad. So I have built a launch pad, and we manually map this, although it's not quite as bad as you would think in this case. And it looks, these are all manually mapped to your 8x8 grid over here on this. So let's just get something going and see what goes on. And as you expect, these are your scene launch buttons here. You can launch individual clips by clicking here, and it will cycle to that next clip. There we go. You can stop an individual row. You can jump down to the next clip here. And stop all that here. What's more interesting is, let's say you have larger than an 8x8 grid. You also have relative control here. So I can choose this selects a row on the computer, and then I can launch that row here. And it's sort of neat because as soon as you launch that one, it goes to the next row, so you're ready to launch that next row. Let's stop that. Occasionally, Ableton will abandon one of these that's not running, and as soon as you hit that, it will clear out the status. So that's a quick look at the launch pad. I mentioned that, let's stop our recording now. I mentioned that it's fairly quick to map these, so let's start a new live set. Save the changes here. So I've got a new live set, and I've got 4 tracks only right now, but you need to build 8 tracks. And the other thing is once you have mapped these, you don't want to delete a track, because that will screw up take out that column of mapping. What you want to do is just change the instrument in there and keep the column intact. So we hit our MIDI map here, we go to the first, we go up here, hit click, and you see we can just cycle down very quickly and get these mapped very quickly. The only secret is when you're trying to map this stop button here, it's this little guy right here. And then over for your relative commands, this little 3 right here is where your relative command will map to. That's your relative launch button right there. So it's fairly straightforward to map those. So I think we've covered everything that there is here. And once again, I want to thank Dan at Confusion Studios for this amazing software they build. And really a shout out to Loop Pop, whose tutorial on getting started with Ableton Live really helped me get going on pulling this together. Thank you.